Hello everyone and welcome back, or welcome if you're new here. My name is Matt, and in today's video I want to show you some of my favorite houseplants, but all of them are super easy care. I love easy care plants, and I know we all appreciate the easy care plants. I have 5 plants to share with you. All 5 of these plants are from completely different genuses, so I basically have something for everybody. And also, I'm not including easy care plants like pothos or ZZ plants because we all know those are easy care plants. And while yes, they are lovely, and I have some in my collection and I do still love them, and they are some of my favorite plants, especially my big pothos, I just wanted to include something that's a little bit more special and that you maybe wouldn't think is easy care just by looking at it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with number 1. When I say alocasias, easy care is not the first thing that comes to my mind, because they can be honest. I'm not gonna even sugarcoat it. I'm not even gonna sugarcoat it. They can be a bitch. They can be a frickin' bitch. They're not always the easiest houseplant to take care of. However, the Alocasia Regal Shields is definitely an exception. This is such a beautiful, stunning, big Alocasia, and I think it is not only one of my favorite houseplants, but also one of my favorite alocasias. I would say alongside my Frydek, it's probably my favorite alocasia. It is super easygoing. It is absolutely beautiful. It has these gorgeous dark kind of, they're not velvety, they're kind of a little bit more leathery feeling leaves, but they are very beautiful. They are dark, they're striking, and they're pretty big, as you can probably tell. Now, my specimen isn't even like super large. I would say this is like a medium size, because these guys can get absolutely massive, but they are ridiculously easy care for me. I keep mine under a 15-watt Sansi bulb, and it's not even like super close to the bulb, and especially this kind of lower part of the plant is actually being shaded by these upper leaves, but she is still growing. She actually holds onto her leaves for quite a bit of time. Now, she did actually lose recently 2 leaves at the bottom that were also big and luscious. However, we are in the depths of winter, so of course some leaf loss is expected, especially with alocasia, but as you can see, she is still pushing out a brand new leaf. So honestly, this girl never stops. She is always growing. And let me show you the root situation. She is so well rooted in here. And I am keeping her in Monstera in philodendron soil by Soil Ninja. And yes, this is neither a Monstera or a philodendron, but I would just say that these aren't fussy when it comes to their soil. As long as it's kind of like your typical chunky aeroid mix, she should be happy. And I mean, look at her. You cannot deny this freaking beauty of a beast. The first time she flowered, I cut off the flowers and she went dormant for a very long time. And then the second time when she flowered, I actually let the flowers kind of like come to, not to fruition because I didn't pollinate them, but I let the flowers just, grow. And then once they started kind of wilting and browning, that's when I chopped them off. And I found that by doing that, I didn't induce dormancy. So once I chopped off those like browning flowers, she just continued normally with leaves. Now, I have no idea if there is any like science to it or not. Creating flowers definitely takes a lot of energy out of our houseplants. So I do realize that a lot of people will just chop off the bloom, but if you're having trouble with alocasias in particular going dormant after blooming, try to keep the bloom on for just a little bit longer and then chopping it off and see if you're gonna have any difference. Obviously, I'm not saying that this is like a proven method, because it's not, but it's just something that I have observed with this plant. Also, she lives in room humidity, no special treatment. I water her regularly, fertilize her. This plant actually dries out quite a bit more than some of my other plants because she is so easy care, so I often neglect her. So I would say that these actually don't mind drying out a little bit, but since it is an alocasia and on the whole, they like to be moist, I wouldn't push it too much. Regarding pests, she is a little bit spider mite prone since, again, she is an alocasia. However, I only had spider mites once on her and I literally just showered her and that was it. That was literally it. So I really can't think of any other cons for this plant, and I just love her. I just love her so much. So Alocasia Regal Shields. And I just want to throw in a little bit of a disclaimer, and that is, just because a plant is growing great for me in my environment, it doesn't automatically mean that it will do the same for you. Every plant is different. Even if we have the same type of plant, the same genus, the same species, they can behave completely different because every plant has their own unique DNA footprint, just like every other living being on the planet. And you just got to remember that plants are living organisms. And in the same vein, I just want to say that just because I'm having an easy time with these plants right now, it doesn't mean that this is going to last forever. And it doesn't mean that these plants maybe won't give me a headache sometime in the future. But as of right now, I've had all of these plants for definitely a good chunk of time, so that I actually know how they behave. And I had really no issues with any of these. So just a little bit of a disclaimer. The next one on the list is a small little ditty guy, and it is my Aglaonema Pictum tricolor. Now she is still a baby. However, I did acquire this plant, I would say about half a year ago, maybe even more. And it was literally a 2-leaf little baby. Right now it has like 2 little offshoots right here, and she's getting like bushy. She's obviously not huge, but this plant has been nothing but easy for me. It is such an easy plant, and it is such a beautiful plant. This camo print, I mean, I love it. I love it so much. Now, the reason why I actually wanted to include this plant is because I know quite a few people are actually struggling with this plant, which I find funny because, I mean, Aglaonemas on the whole are easy-ish. Now, there are some Aglaonemas that I had a horrible time with, and I was fully prepared for this thing to die, because usually these like more unique or variegated Aglaonemas actually are a little bit more finicky, and I was fully expecting to throw this in the bin after like 2 months, because especially since she was a small baby, I really didn't think she had any success chance. However, she proved me wrong. I am dropping freaking soil everywhere. However, she proved me wrong, and she is growing and she's cute, and she actually even bloomed, which is... why are you blooming at this size? I don't know. She lives under a 10-watt Sensi bulb, and she loves it. I think she freaking loves it. She grows really well. She did slow down her growth after blooming, but again, that's kind of normal. I do feel like plants go into a bit of a dormancy after blooming. However, super easy plant. Water it when I remember. I would say with Aglaonemas in general, you don't want to overwater them. It's always better to underwater these guys than overwater them, just because I do find they are very sensitive to root rot from overwatering, but their roots can actually take quite a bit of neglect when it comes to the underwatering side. Humidity, again, room humidity. However, I will say that at first when I got this plant and it was still a baby, I actually kept it in one of those like IKEA cloches for about a month or 2, because I really wanted it to root and become a well-established plant, or like baby plant, before I started to introduce it to my room humidity. And I wasn't really doing the proper way of, you know, slowly lowering the humidity. I just basically kept it in a cloche for a month or 2, and one day I was just like, yeah, you're not gonna live in a cloche anymore, and I just removed the cloche and let her live in room humidity, and she hasn't thrown a fuss. She kept growing, and yeah, she is super freaking cute. Highly recommended if you're looking for a very cute, kind of unique plant. Like, I really love her so much. She is also potted up in some Monstera and Philodendron soil mix from Soil Ninja. Classic aeroid, chunky aeroid mix. I haven't had any pest issues with her as of yet, and hopefully it'll stay that way, because I do not like pests. And that's it for her, Aglaonema Pictum tricolor. Beautiful planty. Now, snake plants get the rap for being boring plants, and I agree to an extent. They can be very boring because, you know, there's not much to them. It's not like a philodendron where every leaf is exciting and it gets bigger, or like an amphibian where it starts off super small and then can get huge. It's not that kind of excitement. However, I think they can be a beautiful piece of statement art. And speaking of statement art, this is my Sansevieria, or I guess they're reclassified now as Dracaena, but I'm still gonna call them Sansevieria Metallica, and I absolutely love this girly. So I know what you may think, like Sansevierias are basic, and I said I wasn't gonna include any basic plants, but I feel like this particular Sansevieria is just very, very unique. It is not like your typical Sansevieria. Its foliage is just so beautiful. This silvery, stripy, variegated goodness. I love it, and she is literally just a piece of freaking art. And I mean, look at this one leaf that's trying to poke me. It's literally like a freaking sword. And I absolutely love this plant, and I want more people to have this plant in their collection because it is so easy. And also, this plant can actually grow pretty freaking fast if you give it like a good lighting condition. Mine lives about close to my west-facing window. It's not like directly in the window, but it's not directly in the window, but it's, you know, a little bit pushed back from it, but she grows at a pretty rapid speed. I would say she was at least half the size when I first got her. So she actually did grow quite a bit, which is amazing. She is in yet another chunky Aeroid mix, nothing special. This is actually some kind of DIY mix that I made back in the day when I was doing my own DIY mixes, but it's just very chunky and very airy. I literally water this plant whenever I remember. I have no pest issues with this plant. This plant never yellows. It never does anything dramatic. It's just a steady, good growing, lovely piece of art. And that's why I love it, because it adds something really whimsical and magical and honestly unique to the rest of my collection, because I do have a lot of like leafy plants. I don't know how to call them, but plants like pothoses and philodendrons and alocasias. And this Sansevieria definitely adds a little bit of a unique touch, and I really, really love it for that. If you're looking for a really cool, easy care statement plant, I definitely recommend the Sansevieria Metallica. Give her a go. You will not be disappointed. This has to be one of my favorite plants in my whole collection. If I had to rank my whole collection, this would be definitely probably in my top 3, because I absolutely love this plant. And this is a Hoya linearis. And I know that this plant is extremely popular, but for a good freaking reason, because it is beautiful. It is so beautiful. It is so pretty. I mean, come on. She is so long. She is. I just cannot explain to you. I have to come closer. I cannot explain to you how much I freaking love this plant. Oh, I love this plant so much. And the reason why I love it, well, first of all, it is a gorgeous, bushy, trailing plant that can get super long, but also the leaves, the little, I don't know, what you call these? The leaves, the needles, they are actually fussy, and it feels so nice to just stroke it. And girl, I love to stroke it. That's what she said. It is a very, very tactile plant, and honestly, whenever I feel stressed out, whenever somebody pisses me off, I just walk up to my linearis and I just give it a little pet. I just give it a little stroke. And honestly, it makes me feel so much better. It is truly such a beautiful, beautiful plant. It lives on top of my IKEA Vitcho shelf. It gets light on the top from an Amazon grow light, but this part here is pretty much all in ambient lighting, which is not too bright, and she is still growing. I mean, I absolutely love this plant. I know some people do actually have problems or troubles with this plant, and I will say that she does like to, I don't know if I have like an example, because I did give her a trim recently, but she does like to drop needles in like the middle of her vine. I actually don't have any examples. Oh, actually here you can see it a little bit. But yeah, you can see that she has like no needles in this one node, and she does like to do that, so she can sometimes drop needles. But what I would do is I would just chop it and propagate it and put it back into the pot. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. They're pretty easy to propagate and they're pretty fast at growing, so even if you give them like a hefty haircut, they will still grow back pretty fast. And also, if you give them regular haircuts, you can actually really get these to look very, very bushy, which is obviously a fantastic look with such a plant. I feel like a lot of trailing plants, like there is not a lot of trailing plants that look good once they're like super, super long. I mean, or it takes a lot of time and effort to maintain them looking good. Because for example, with Apophysis or with trailing philodendron, oftentimes when they get long, they get spindly and their leaves get small. And you know, there is a lot of like naked stem where there are no leaves. And they don't really look that great long term. However, I feel like the Linearis is one of the most beautifully growing trailing plants. Like its growth pattern is just absolutely stunning. It is such a whimsical plant and I freaking love it. I have no pest issues with her. However, I will say that this is a little bit of a thirstier Hoya, and I would suspect that's because of these tiny little needles, because they are very, very thin. So I would suggest you to water this as soon as it's dry. With Hoyas, usually people advise you to, you know, wait for it to get super bone dry. And honestly, I would say don't stick to that advice unless it's working for you. If it's working for you, then stick to it. But I would say that I treat my Hoyas, especially this one, more like I treat all of my other aeroids, where once I see that kind of the top few inches of the soil are dry, then I will give it a good water. I regularly fertilize her, and yeah, that's about it. I really don't have anything special to add with her. I mean, I think we all know this plant, we all love this plant, and I just want to highlight how easy care it is. But again, I know that some people are having trouble with these plants, so just because I'm having an easy time with it doesn't mean it's automatically gonna be easy for everybody. However, if you haven't given it a try, you have to. You have to. It is such a beautiful, beautiful plant. Once again, this is a Hoya linearis. Mine unfortunately never bloomed for me, which is sad, and if this blooms one day, I will be a very, very happy fella. We have only one more plant left. And last, but certainly not least, we have my stunning, my sexy beast, which is my Anthurium clarinervium. This is by far my favorite Anthurium that I own. I mean, what can I say? Just look at her. Just look at her. I mean, she is bushy goodness. She is dark. She has striking venations. She is velvety. I literally love this plant to the moon and back. It's just chef's kiss. And I feel like this plant is so underrated because it is very common. And all of these plants that I showed today are pretty common and widely available. That's the reason why I actually wanted to showcase them, because it's not all about the rare guys. It's not all about the expensive plants. This plant you can get for like what, 15, 20 bucks? And it is honestly one of the most beautiful plants I think that you can own. So I just want to encourage everybody to also give some love to the common, to the quote-unquote basic plants, because so often we just focus on the fancy expensive ones. But yeah, back to this plant. Super freaking easy peasy lemon squeezy. She lives under my mother grow light, but she's actually pretty far away from it. Room humidity. She does struggle with pests a little bit. She did have thrips for quite some time last spring, I believe. But the good thing about her is she has very, very thick cardboard-like leaves. So I feel like any pest damage isn't very obvious, especially, at least not the thrip damage that I have. It's very, very minimal. I'm trying to see if I have like any examples to show, but yeah, you can barely even see that she did have pests. You can maybe see it on this leaf. This is maybe like a good leaf to show. You can see some damage over here on the lobing. And I would say when actually checking this plant for pests, definitely check these like lobby parts and the part where the petiole meets the actual leaf, because I feel like that's where the boogers like to hide a lot. Now this plant I know is also susceptible to spider mites. I never had spider mites on mine, thank God, but I feel like since it is a very dark velvety leaf, spider mite damage would probably be a little bit more obvious on this plant. But on the whole, super easy plant, great rooter. It's very forgiving when it comes to watering. If you underwater this plant, it won't throw a fuss. It won't get like a lot of yellow edges like some other anthuriums. So it is just an easy plant. It grows really fast. It produces a lot of inflorescence. Mine literally produces one inflorescence, one leaf, one inflorescence, one leaf. So, and it does that pretty fast. So it's a fast grower. It doesn't require high humidity. It doesn't really require any special care, which is why I love it. And it looks just so beautiful. So this is my anthurium clarinervium. Let me know which of these plants is your favorite. Do you have any of these plants in your own collection? And what is your experience with these plants? I would love to know. If you have any favorite easy care plant of your own that I didn't mention, I would love to hear about that as well. Until next time, I hope you have an amazing, super fabulous day. Remember to be kind to yourself and love and appreciate your plants. Goodbye!